Yo, 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 what is going on, CoD Familia? It is your boy BN. Today, switching things up, we have a interview for you with WB's R5, Elega. Now, they are currently fighting against Echo in the #1 KVK currently for the G2 or Gen 2 Kingdom Pool. Here in 6045 for the SOS4, they are in Chongli, fighting against them right now. Right, currently at a stalemate on the bridge choke, but Echo has a little bit more territory compared to them. We are going to be sharing a number of questions and answers from Elega that was kind enough to write out for us. So let's go ahead and dive in. As always, if you enjoy the content, make sure you throw us off because it helps out a lot. Thanks. Here we go. So, starting with, first question we asked was, hey, Elega, thank you for taking the time today to help viewers get to know you better. Could you first share how you started playing mobile games and whether you've played any other Kingdom Builder games besides Call of Dragons? Elega's answer was, there wasn't any special reason I started this game. About 2 years ago on the Korean Thanksgiving holiday, I was on a train heading to work when I happened to see the Call of Dragons app and just installed it. At the time, I thought I'd just enjoy it lightly, only buying the daily packages. As for other SLG genre games, I've tried games with the Chinese 3 Dynasty themes and LOTR, or The Lord of the Rings. I didn't play them long, but in every season in the games I have participated in, I was victorious. Subtle drop, subtle and humble brags. All right, number 2. What drew you to Call of Dragons? And compared to the other Kingdom Builder games you've tried, how did it feel different? Elega's answer is, I think its strength lies in the well-designed hero pairings and dynamic battles. It's not just text-based combat, but the fact that you can actually control your 3D units and fight. That's the biggest charm of the game. And I think I very much agree here with this line of thought because we've done a comparison video before where we talked about differences between Rock and COD and the advantages that Call of Dragons has as what I have stated is the most competitive Kingdom Builder out on the market. And for a number of reasons, not only with the free troop movement, which is not necessarily unique to COD, but being able to activate in a timed fashion your artifacts in real time, being able to have true ranged combat, which to me is probably the biggest one, having the flying units, and those I think are just some of the staples that really allow for COD, along with its, again, well aesthetically pleasing visuals, that really lend itself to being, again, a top contender amongst Kingdom Builders. Even though it may not be the most popular, it may not have the most downloads, to me, at this moment in time, it is the most well-endowed Kingdom Builder, and as I've said, right, I believe very much so the most competitive Kingdom Builder out there that has the highest skill cap out of any of the Kingdom Builders that I have seen and have played thus far for myself. Okay, let's get to question 3. In Call of Dragons, which Kingdom and Alliance did you first start in? I first started playing in a Kingdom on server 250, a Kingdom that was mostly composed of Koreans. Makes sense. Number 4. Which kingdoms and alliances have you been active in so far? So kind of trying to get a history, right? To see, where has Elega played and, where have they gone as well. I've been in R5 since season 1 until now. The history of the clans I've led is Z250, OP, and WB. I should have asked about, I did ask kingdoms. Okay, he just put alliances. That's fine. Okay, outside of the game, what kind of work do you do? You can share in detail or just briefly. Like I said, I'm currently a professor at a medical school in a provincial area of Korea. and also work as an anesthesiologist and pain medicine specialist at a university hospital. Damn! So my man is educated. Love it. And I can only, it's so fascinating to me how you get people that, even though, yeah, like, some people are like, okay, professor at a medical school, doctor, if you will, right? Even though stated anesthesiologist, medicine specialist, it's always, I feel, when you know a little bit more about someone, whether that's putting a voice to a face, right? Especially if there's people that you talk to in game for a while, but you never hear their voice, and then they finally hop in VC and you're able to connect, and you're like, oh, well, you sound exactly how I thought, or, oh no, you didn't sound anything like I thought you would. But then you get to know a little bit more about their background. And part of me feels like, even if, they're not essentially giving you out their address to come and visit for a cup of tea and some crumpets, for me, I like it because it feels like it paints a little bit more of a picture for those of you, especially if you're involved, or maybe, you've played with this person before and maybe you didn't know a little bit about them. So I always find that as a nice to know, if you will. That's pretty cool. Okay, number 6. Have you always spent money on games or kingdom builders? If so, what motivates you to spend on these kinds of games? So SLGs are a pay-to-win game. A leader account represents the kingdom, so I believe it must never be weak. I don't think it needs to be the strongest ridiculous Kraken, but it should at least be in the dolphin to whale category. Okay. Also, boosting the morale of our alliance members through financial support and opening gold chests becomes a strong motivation for me as a leader. Okay. Recently, I have decided to provide free RSS support for all members in the Alliance who are unable to keep up with the RSS healing resource demands to prepare against Echo. There's quite a bit here that was stated. We did a video on this where we talked about, well, if you're going to be a king or queen of a kingdom, what's the difference between someone who is a free-to-play versus someone who spends money? And is one or the other more suited or well-suited to be a king or queen of a kingdom? I've seen messages that have stated they believe that it should just be one or the other. And more often than not, I usually see messages from people that are more on the side of, well, you're someone who is leading the kingdom, you should be spending money. Your account is in a form, a representation of not only the kingdom, but the strength, the responsibility of one. And then some other people will say, well, it doesn't really matter. I, for one, very much am of the opinion that it doesn't matter. And I only say that because of me doing a number of projects and being someone who, for the most part, has pretty much always been free to play. There is a difference between the type of king or queen you are. If you are someone planning to play and be involved as much or as little as what you may feel is needed to do, to fill your role, to fulfill your tasks and your responsibilities for the kingdom. But some people feel it is, more so on one end. Elega clearly feels that, you should be someone who spends some amount of money in order to be that. And I'm sure others agree with that as well. My belief is that you just need to be able to do everything that is asked of you, expected, and required of you, regardless of if you spend money or not. If you could fulfill those things and you have a consistent track record and you're able to be, pretty objective and fair and balanced in what you're doing, and you're able to keep in line with the goals that you have set for your kingdom and the community that is there, and you can keep your integrity to that, then I think all of those things are really great to do. Then we end up getting to number 7 here, which is in battle so far, which kingdom and alliance have you most enjoyed fighting against and why? So like I said, EIS. Through fighting EIS, we realized many shortcomings and became a stronger, more solid alliance. It was the first that showed strong coordination with infantry, and we were able to learn a lot from their tactics. So, for this one, this is interesting because in this case with WB, they are also aligned, right, this season with the EIS. And for them to say that this was the Kingdom and Alliance, right, they had the most enjoyment or fun fighting against, is, especially I think because they're a top kingdom, it's not as though there's going to be a lot of options right at that point, especially depending on if, in WB's case, I think they were in the number 2 KVK last season. But saying that it was the first alliance that showed strong coordination with infantry and we were able to learn a lot from their tactics. I think this, to me, is always a nice nod because it's, listen, we respect the fact that you guys came out, you fought, you had good activity, but you also were able to take something away from that. I always find that can be, not only is only humbling, but I love the self-awareness there as well to say, like, look, anytime you fight someone, you might be able to take something away from them, regardless if you win or you lose. So, okay, next one. Which kingdom and alliance have you most enjoyed allying with so far, and why? Like I said, the SURA kingdom. In the previous season, WB has some traumatic histories when it comes to finding a competitive B-tier ally. Thankfully, in the last season, SURA was showing strong competence and communication, which led to a very satisfying season. And I thought that this was a nice question to ask because I think it's not only about who you're fighting against, but oftentimes it can be you needing to work out and figure out who you're going to work with. And sometimes it can feel like it's a roulette table where you just don't know if your ally is going to show up, how easy is it going to be to work with them, how is communication going to work, how is coordination going to play out. All of those things, especially if you haven't played with them before and it's a first-time ally, those are things that you really need to feel out, and you might go through some rocky patches. So I think it's always nice to see that you're getting some recognition in that way. And I also thought, hey, this would be a good shout out, for those kingdoms that, were able to benefit from good experiences. So now let's get a little more specific. In this season's Brink of War event, 249 and 60 both set unprecedented scores over 2 billion each in total points. How was 249 able to achieve such a high score, and how did it feel to secure the number 1 spot and win the 3% damage buff? And we've talked about this before, but just for some context here, I keep track of pretty much the main KVK pool, right, which has been the G2 pool for a while now. And usually it's the one that has the most amount of kingdoms in them and usually the most amount of strongest kingdoms in them, if not typically all of the strongest kingdoms. And so the last season, the Brink of War historical high was at around 1 billion points. That was the top score achieved by some kingdom. I'm forgetting their name too as well. I showed this off in a previous video. So 2 billion is essentially double that. And to have 2 kingdoms that hit that is wild. Like, that is an understatement, right? Okay, answer. I believe it was possible because all 200 members of the kingdom came together as one. Every single member in our alliance has met its quota, and several of our members. Additionally, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank many top rankers who sacrificed for the team. It felt good to overtake Echo. And I mean, listen, I think if you were to play the odds here and you were able to predict who was going to win Brink of War in the beginning before anyone started playing, I think most people probably would have anticipated and picked Echo to win the top spot. So the fact that they got pushed, and bear in mind, WB only won by a little bit, but the fact that they were able to compete and to stick right there and then edge it out before the event ended, I mean, you got to give some kudos there, right? Respect. Number 10. Recently, 249 narrowly won against 60 in the first statue war with points. How did it feel to secure victory in that first statue war against Echo? The statue war was aligned with WB's uptime, and we had more accounts than Echo, so I think that's why we won. While I do not have any particular feelings about the victory itself, I believe that it proves WB is worthy of challenging the number one kingdom of the game. This answer to me is mad respectful, right? Self-aware enough to state that, listen, like, we understand this was probably during our uptime. We had a little bit more activity during this window, right? And even though this isn't like the most important thing, so to speak, that is going to determine, right, who's going to win the KVK, right? It's obviously nice to still get a victory regardless, but we realize that, we are challenging the number one out there. So I really appreciated it. I really appreciated this answer and the way that it was worded, because it did not come off cocky at all. And so again, right, kudos there. Number 11. Do you think 60 Echo is the strongest opponent WB has faced so far? If so, why? Most of Echo's members are pay-to-win players and are passionate about the game. That's why I think they are currently the strongest kingdom in CallofDragons. Additionally, there are rumors that they have many pilots, which I think is also one of their strengths because they can cover 24 hours of uptime. Okay, so kind of an answer, right? For some of it, but again, right? I think this is the thing when you start getting to like the top kingdoms, right? Is that because of basically how a funneling system works and how some people are always going to be looking to climb the ladder, you're eventually going to get to a state where amongst the top kingdoms, there's not going to be any free-to-play players, right? It's just going to be all pay-to-wins. And, I'm sure some people would probably rather have, then it's like the pay-to-wins the free-to-play gets phased out. And then eventually the light spends get phased out. And then you're left with like mid to heavy spenders. And obviously, if you can get to a kingdom where they could even phase out the mid spenders, then, and they end up with only heavy spenders or high spenders, right? That's probably the ideal state that you would want, that some of these top kingdoms would probably want to be in. But okay, no, again, appreciate that. I mean, I think, and we've talked about the pilot stuff as well, right? I mean, I think it's pretty fair to say that a number of the top kingdoms engage in flying. Now, how much do they? How little do they? Are there any top kingdoms that just don't do it at all? Obviously those answers would probably be harder to come by, because now you're kind of starting to get a little bit more personal. Like, you have to do a lot of investigation to really kind of figure those things out. Number 12. What kind of community is the 249 kingdom? What do you think 249 does well as a kingdom? First, our kingdom strictly forbids any form of abusive chats anywhere in the game. While we do recognize some keyboard warriors within our alliance, I think that's Master Rich and is that BoW? I'm not sure. They also refrain from sending comments that cross the line. This way, we mostly maintain either a neutral or friendly relationship with many of the kingdoms in the game. In the end, your enemy today can be a friend tomorrow. Good point. Second, while many of the people believe we are a Korean Asian-centric alliance, we are an international alliance that consists of Korean officers. I believe that it is crucial to have the leadership consist mostly of Koreans so that there is a stronger bond within the leadership. We have seen many strong kingdoms fall from conflicts within leadership, and I believe that will never happen with WB. Okay, so bold cotton. Finally, we are a strong coordinated kingdom, especially when it comes to our uptime strength. We have seen 180 plus online during our statue fights and pass openings, which, again, that's a good number. Regarding KVK, is there any feature you'd like to see added, changed, or removed? If so, why? I think the ability to adjust starting points through mutual agreement must be added. Just that one change would make our seasons much more balanced and fun. If you look at our current KVK, EIS, and 25AL, they need to wait until the final zone due to the randomized nature of the starting zones, which I think we know this is coming, right? And I think that's what Elega is kind of pointing to here, is that being able to choose your starting zone, right? By adjusting it, as he said. So, which again, we know this is a change that's happening where eventually you're going to be able to select your starting zone, based on your teams. One person goes, the other team goes, or other kingdom goes, etc. Number 14. Looking at the game overall, is there anything you'd like to see added, changed, or removed? If so, why? Like says, no, there isn't. Would have appreciated a little bit more there, but okay, right? Touche. It's your answer, it's not mine. Number 15. Thank you so much for joining this interview, Elega. Finally, do you have any message, any message, statement, or words you'd like to share with anyone? I want to express my deep gratitude to all the Kingdom members who trust and follow me, especially my leadership team. Your happiness is my happiness. I'm going to start crying. CallofDragons is just a game. I will give my all so that all members of Server 249 can enjoy and be happy. Thank you. And that wraps us up for an interview with 249's WB's R5 and King Elega. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. And as always, let me know what you think in the comments down below.